Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video we have another topic, which is global capitalism in crisis. So without any further ado, let's get started. So as we can see, the tendency towards booms, slumps and crises within a capitalist economy does not fit easily into classical liberal political economy. So economic liberalism is largely based on the assumption that market economies tend naturally towards a state of equilibrium, demand and supply coming into line with one another through the workings of the price mechanism, right? However, the history of capitalism at both national and international levels does not bear out this image of equilibrium and stability. Instead, capitalism has always been susceptible to booms and slumps, even violent fluctuations and crises. As early as 1720, the collapse of the so-called South Sea bubble, which is widely speculated trading in the South Sea Company, a UK joint stock company, granted a monopoly to trade in Spain's South American colonies, caused financial ruin for thousands of investors. So, one factor that appears to be linked to economic fluctuations is war. Many of the most dramatic historical episodes of sustained deflation come into the aftermath of war. A sustained economic depression followed the American War of Independence and after the Congress of Vienna. And in the Napoleonic War, Europe experienced decades of deflation in which industrial investment was costly and many firms went bankrupt. So, in the mid 19th century, the wars of unification in Italy and Germany and the American Civil War each produced immediate speculative bubbles, which then collapsed, leading to widespread bankruptcies and stock market crashes. Okay. However, other explanations of booms and slumps locate their source within the nature of the capitalist system itself. So, the classic example of this is found in Marx's analysis of capitalism. Marx was concerned not only to highlight the inherent instability of capitalism based on irreconcilable class conflict, okay, but also to analyze the nature of capitalist development. In particular, he drew attention to its tendency to experience deepening economic crises. These stemmed in the main from cyclical crisis of overproduction, plunging the economy into stagnation and bringing unemployment and incarceration to the working class. So each crisis would be more severe than the last, because Marx calculated in the long term the rate of profit would fall. Okay, this would eventually and inevitably produce conditions in which the proletariat, the vast majority in society, would rise up in revolution. So, whatever its other advantages, the Marxist image of deepening crisis of capitalism, leading irresistibly towards the system's final collapse and replacement, has proved to be unsound. So, by contrast, capitalism has proved to be remarkably resilient and adaptable, capable of weathering financial and economic storms of various kinds while also achieving long-term growth and expansion. This has occurred not least through the fact that capitalism's capacity for technological innovation has far outstripped Marx's expectations. Few therefore continue to see the tendency towards boom and bust cycles as a fatal flaw within capitalism, still less a precursor of social revolution. Okay. Now, amongst the most influential of non-Marxist theories were those developed by Austrian economist and social theorist Joseph Schumpeter, building on Marx's theory of the capitalist business cycle. Schumpeter argued that capitalism existed in a state of ferment he dubbed creative destruction, with spurts of innovation destroying established enterprises and yielding new ones. Now, lessons of the Great Crash. See, the greatest challenge that international capitalism has faced was posed by the Great Depression of the 1930s, which was precipitated by the Wall Street crash of 1929. From 1926, the USA experienced an artificial boom fed by a rash of speculation and the expectations of ever rising share prices. So, average share prices increased nearly 300% between 1924 and 1929. However, in 1929, confidence in the economy suddenly evaporated when signs appeared that the sale of goods was starting to decline. On 24th October to 24, 1929, Black Thursday, a panic ensued on the stock market as 13 million shares changed hands in a single day. On 29 October, 16 million shares were sold. Banks subsequently failed. Major businesses started to collapse and unemployment began to rise. As a result, economic depression in the US spread abroad, affecting to some degree all industrialized states. The Great Crash became a Great Depression. However, what was the relationship between the Great Crash and the Great Depression? Do financial crises have to develop into economic crisis? So the Wall Street crash is relatively easy to explain. As J.K. Galbraith argued in his classical The Great Crash 1929, it was just another speculative bubble, albeit on a historically unprecedented scale. It was, he argued, an escape into make-believe, right, fueled by the belief that it is possible to get rich without effort and without work. So this lesson was most crucially taught by Keynes, whose the general theory of employment, interest and money challenged classical economic thinking and rejected its belief in a self-regulating market. Keynes argued that the level of economic activity and therefore employment is determined by the total amount of demand. Now, the second lesson of the Great Crash was that its economic impact was substantially dependent by the general trend towards beggar thy neighbor policies. In a context of economic decline, states in the late 1920s and through the 1930s took steps to maximize their exports while at the same time minimizing their imports. This was done in a variety of ways. First, fiscal deflation through either or both reduced government spending and raised taxes was used to reduce the demand for imports. So the problem with this, as pointed out earlier, was that reduced levels of aggregate demand would affect the domestic economy just as much as it would affect imports. So the second strategy was devaluation, in the hope of that exports would become cheaper for overseas customers while imports would become relatively more expensive and less desirable. However, although countries that devaluated earlier tended to recover from the depression more quickly than the later devaluators did, competitive devaluations had a net deflationary effect and so deepened the economic crisis. Third, governments raised tariffs on imports in the hope of protecting domestic industries and reducing unemployment, a policy that even Keynes favored. However, the overall impact of beggar thy neighbor policies was self-defeating and only served to deepen and prolong the Great Depression. Countries cannot maximize their exports while minimizing their imports. If all countries are trying to do the same thing, it was largely in an attempt to prevent the international economy being damaged in the post 1945. Do you know what is the meaning of devaluation? Devaluation means a reduction in the value of a currency relative to other currencies. Second one is casino capitalism. Casino capitalism means a form of capitalism that is highly volatile and unpredictable because it is susceptible to speculatively oriented lifts in financial capital. So our another topic is modern crisis and contagions. Contagion means the tendency of investors alarmed by a crisis in one part of the world to remove money from another parts of the world, thereby spreading panic well beyond the scope of the initial problem. Okay, so during the early post 1945 period, Western governments widely believed that the instabilities of the business cycle had been solved by the application of Keynesian principle, which seemed to offer a means of counteracting the tendency towards booms and slumps. So, however, the belief in Keynesianism declined after the stagflation crisis of the 1970s, hastened by the subsequent revival of laissez-faire. Okay, so thinking in the guise of neoliberalism, this nevertheless did not cure but rather accentuated the fluctuation within the capitalist system, intensifying its tendency towards creative destruction. This is an important aspect of the development of a so-called risk society. So financial markets are always susceptible to fluctuation and instability as a result of speculative bubbles. However, the emergence of a globalized financial system has accentuated these tendencies by leaving states more vulnerable and exposed to the vagaries of global markets. This has created what Susan Strange dubbed casino capitalism. Massive amounts of mad money surge around the world, creating the phenomenon of financial contagion. Now let's see some key issues. Crisis of modern global capitalism. See, 1994 to 1995, you will see the Mexican economic crisis begins with the sudden devaluation of the Mexican pesos and has an impact elsewhere in Latin America. Another one is 1997 to 90. The Asian financial crisis starts in Thailand with the collapse of the baht, but spreads to most of South East Asia and Japan, where currency slumps and stock markets crash. Another one is 1998. The Russian financial crisis sees the collapse of stock, bond, and currency markets in a context of falling commodity prices in the wake of the Asian financial crisis. Another one is 1999 to 2002. So the Argentine economic crisis begins with the loss of investor confidence in the Argentine economy in a context of falling GDP, leading to a flight of money away from the country. Now, 2000, the dot-com crisis sees the bursting of the dot-com bubble after dramatic speculative rises in IT-related stocks since 1998. Then 2002, the Uruguay banking crisis witnesses a massive run on banks amid concerns about the Uruguayan economy linked to Argentina's economic meltdown. Another one is 2007 to 2008. The US subprime mortgage crisis precipitates the global financial crisis. Then 2007 to 2009, the global financial crisis. Okay, so the global financial crisis of 2007 to 9 is widely seen as the most serious financial crisis since the Great Depression. It is also highlighted deeper and more serious instabilities in the global economy, particularly in countries that had taken financial deregulation, furthest and were carrying an increased burden of public and private debts. So friends, that's all for today. I hope you understand this topic very well. If you have any doubt, feel free to ask any question to me. If you like this video, please hit the like button and do share this video with your friends, and do subscribe my YouTube channel for more videos. Till then, see you in the next video. Till then, bye bye, take care.